Sec 3 AMF Lesson 5 Additional Practice. Okay, question 1. Now what this question is trying to say is there's a projectile, and this projectile follows a quadratic equation. So if you think logically, when you throw any projectile, it will fly in this manner, okay? And this projectile creates a path that looks like a quadratic equation that is a set phase, right? Which means your a is less than 0. Which is why if you look at this equation, your coefficient of x squared is less than 0. It's a negative value. So the quadratic equation will be a set phase. And this is in line with how a projectile will move. All right. So when you throw any item, it will reach a maximum height before hitting the ground, right? So now for part A, find the greatest height reached by the tennis ball and the corresponding horizontal distance. So the height is represented by y, and x is the corresponding horizontal distance. So all you have to do is find the maximum value. So how you find the maximum value? You simply complete the square. Okay, so for part A, this is what you do. To complete the square, you have to make sure the coefficient of x squared is 1. So we factorize minus 1 over 10 out. So first we write it in this format, then we factorize minus 1 over 10 out. So this is what you will get in the bracket, then proceed to complete the square. So this is what you will get, carry on the step. Okay, now once you're done here, right, the completing the square does not stop. You have to interact the minus 1 over 10 inside here and here as well. So this is your final equation. So from here, you can extract out what the greatest height is. So take note, the greatest height will be this value, and the corresponding horizontal distance will be x equals to 30, right? Okay. So the greatest height reaches 1991.2, and the distance traveled will be 30 meters. Now you have to, now for part B, find the horizontal distance traveled by the tennis ball when it hits the ground, okay? So when you hit the ground, the height of the ball at ground will be 0, right? So let's say you throw it at a certain height, it will go up before it hits the ground. So when it hits the ground, the height will be 0, which means your equation y will be equals to 0. So for this part B, all you have to do is make sure that y equals to 0. So when y equals to 0, write your following equation. Okay, then you can bring this entire part over to the left-hand side. And then you can bring the 10 over here to make it 912. Okay, so once you're here, it becomes very easy. You just have to square root both sides. So x minus 30 equals to positive square root 912 or negative square root 912. So you will have two answers. One is 60.1993 and the other one's a negative value. So naturally, you will reject the negative value, because your horizontal distance cannot be a negative value. So the answer is just 60.2. Okay, question 2. Now, don't worry about this portion over here. Okay, just observe what's going to happen, all right? So this person kicks a football from the ground. So the motion of the ball starts from the ground and it travels upwards. So 2 seconds later, it reaches a maximum height. And after another 2 seconds, the ball reaches the ground. Okay, so the motion of the ball, the projectile, follows a quadratic equation where your a is a negative value. So for part A, if this is the equation over here, you can now fit in the values here, right? So it says that 2 seconds later, it reaches a maximum height of 28, which means the coordinate will be 2, 28. So this coordinate will be extracted when you complete the square. Okay, so notice now your y equation, right? It's written in this format. Y equals to a bracket x minus h squared plus k. So just by looking at this, if I were to tell you to write down the maximum value, the turning point, using algebraic expression, you write it as h comma k, right? And your coordinate for the maximum point will be 2, 28, like this. So from here, we can easily write that h equals to 2 and k equals to 28. Okay, so that's the first two answers. You're able to find h and k easily, all right? Okay, now let's look at the animation. Yeah. Okay, now take note, the coordinate over here is written wrongly. It's supposed to be 2, 28. Okay, so don't bother with this. Okay. Now for part B. So if you were to refer to my drawing earlier on, okay, the ball reaches the ground after a further 2 seconds, right? Which means it takes a total of 4 seconds for the ball to go up and then reach the ground, okay? So when t equals to 4 seconds, your height will be 0. So your height is represented by y, right? So you must write when y equals to 0, x equals to 4. Okay. So when y is 0, your time equals to 4, right? In other words, your x. So all you have to do next is just put the values inside the equation. You'll be able to find what a is. So a will be -7. So always remember, whenever you're doing a question that talks about projectiles, right? Your a must always be negative, okay? Because there's no way that a projectile will go down with that. All right, so a few things to take note in this animation here. Your coordinate is 2, 28. All right. And in this case here, when t equals to 4, right, I will recommend that you write x equals to 4, okay? Since x is the one that's representing the time, you rather write x equals to 4, right? Okay, now for part B, Baron is able to catch the ball if it's at most 2 meters above the ground. Find a range of values of x for him to be able to catch the ball. Okay, now when you read this question here, there is a clue. Find the range of values. If you're asking to find a range of values, this means it's an inequality question. Okay, so now they've created the equation. Okay. You write the equation as y equals to -7 bracket x minus 2 square plus 28. Okay, and once you've written this, you're going to do this like an inequality question, where this entire expression here, -7 bracket x minus 2 square plus 28, this entire expression is less than or equals to 2. Why is that the case? It's because they're asking if it is at most 2, which means the maximum possible height that Baron can reach is 2 meters. So it's 2 meters or below. Okay, so let's carry on. So this is how you're going to write it. This expression is less than or equals to 2. Now proceed to do your inequality. Okay, you can write it in this format where you bring your -28 over, it becomes -26. Then you can bring the -7 down here. It means you divide both sides by -7. Now kindly take note, since you're dividing both sides by a negative value, this inequality sign will flip sides, okay? Okay, now once you've written in this format, it's much easier to do, okay? You can just square it both sides. Okay, sorry, I'll retract what I said. You don't square it both sides for inequality question, okay? Instead of square rooting, you might want to bring it over so that you'll get a square minus b square more than equals to 0, okay? So that's what you will get over here. Okay. Okay, once you've written over here, right? Now this equation here resembles a square minus b square. This is your a square. And this right here is your b square. So you've learned in Sec 2 to expand this out would be a plus b bracket a minus b less than equals to 0. Okay? So keep this in mind. So you'll become like this. You rewrite it as a square minus b square. Okay? So this is your a minus b. And this is your a plus b. Okay. So from here, we can now extract the range of values. So before you extract your range of values, you quickly draw out your coordinates. Okay, which is 0.0728 and 3.93. Okay, so once you key in these values here, okay, since you want x, this whole thing to be more than 0, it has to be this portion over here or this portion over here. So therefore, x is less than 0.0728 or x is more than or equals to 3.93. Now, kindly take note there's a catch over here. Now, over here, if you were to write x is less than or equals to 0.0728, x is more than or equals to 3.93. Now, take note, if it's just a question without a problem sum, your answer here is correct, okay? But since this question is attached to a problem sum, it has to make sense with the problem sum. Now, take note here, x is representing time, right? Now, if you were to write x is less than this value, it means you're also including negative values. Now, take note for time, there is no negative value, okay? Time is not a vector quantity, it's a scalar quantity. So for this range, you're going to rewrite it as x is between 0 and 0.0728. Only for this range, all right? This one is totally fine because x is more than a positive number, okay? So this range makes sense. So these are the two answers that you have to give to get your full score. Okay, question 3. Okay, question 3 is pretty straightforward. Okay, all you have to do is bring the 5 minus 4x over to the left-hand side. This is what you'll get. Make it neater. You have x squared minus x minus 2, which is more than 0. Now from here, you just have to factorize it. Get x minus 2 bracket x plus 1 bracket more than 0. Okay. So after you're done with this, make sure you put in your coordinates. You quickly draw your quadratic graph. You sketch it and put -1 and 2 over here. Now take note, you want your y values to be more than 0. So when will your y values be more than 0? When it's above this portion here and this portion here, okay? Above the x-axis. So this portion here would be when x is less than -1. And this portion here is when x is more than 2. Now you have to represent your answer on a number line. So draw your number line. When you just mark -1 and 2, and you draw 2 circles, make sure you do not shade the 2 circles, okay? So one arrow is going to the left and one arrow is going to the right. Yeah. Okay, question 4. Prove that these two lines do not intersect each other. Now, for these two lines to not intersect each other, right? You will do a simultaneous equation. And when you do the simultaneous equation, you write 5x plus 9 equals to minus 2x squared plus 6x plus 3. Then you go down and try and solve it, right? At a certain point, you'll get this weird looking quadratic equation that equals to 0. Now, if you're going to prove that these two lines do not intersect, which means you're unable to solve the equation, right? Okay, so keep that in mind. Just do the simultaneous equation. Okay. So you're just going to write that this whole thing equals to 5x plus 9. And you write it neatly. And you bring the entire left equation over to the right-hand side. And you continue on, you get 2x squared minus x plus 6 equals to 0, okay? This was the weird quadratic equation that I was telling you about. Now, naturally, you're going to solve this using any method, right? Okay, so you would have learned in EMath by now that the default way is using the quadratic formula. So x equals to minus b plus minus square root b squared minus 4ac over 2a. So in AMath, we are more interested in the portion that is under the square root. B squared minus 4ac. This is a discriminant. So if you're unable to solve this, it's because your discriminant here is negative. Square root of a negative number, you won't be able to solve it, right? So all you have to do is just prove that your discriminant is negative. So when it comes to proving, you're going to prove that it's negative, right? From the get-go, if you're going to write b squared minus 4ac is less than 0, it is wrong. Because this is not proving, you're already assuming. So when it comes to proving question, all you have to do is write b squared minus 4ac. Stop right there. Write equals to, key in all your coefficients, and the answer you get will be a negative value. Show that that is less than 0. Okay? This is how it goes. So using discriminant, you create all your coefficients. Then you write b squared minus 4ac equals to, key in all your coefficients here, you get minus 47, right? Minus 47 indicates that your discriminant is less than 0. So show examiner, now it's less than 0. Then you conclude with a statement. Since b squared minus 4ac is less than 0, the line and the curve do not intersect each other. Okay? Okay, question 5. Determine the number of points of intersection for each of the following pairs of equations. Okay, so same thing, you're going to do simultaneous equation. However, we would recommend the substitution method because that will be so much easier. Why is it easier? It's because if you look at your first equation, right? Okay, there's x, and there's only one y. So why not just convert that one y into a form of x, okay? This is what we're going to do. We're going to use this equation here. 3y equals to 2x minus 3. You're going to write this y equals to 2x minus 3 over 3. Label this as equation 1. And you're going to sub this into equation 2. Substitute equation 1 to equation 2. So y will be replaced by 2x minus 3 over 3. So this is what you'll get. Okay, so from here, expand this bracket. You get the following. notice that your denominator is 9, right? So multiply everything by 9. So now everything looks a bit more neater. Now bring all the x squares to the left-hand side, the x to the left-hand side, and the numbers all to the left-hand side. You get this. Make it a bit neater. You get 5x squared minus 24x plus 27 equals to 0. Now the question here is not asking you to solve and get the two different coordinates. Okay, they're asking you to determine the number of points of intersection. How will you determine that? You simply use the discriminant, okay? So using discriminant, you extract the coefficients first and use b squared minus 4ac. Now in this question, we do not know whether there be 2 points, 1 point, or no point at all, okay? So we're going to find out what b squared minus 4ac equals to. Key in all the coefficients, you get 36. 36 is a positive number. So you can conclude, since b squared minus 4ac is more than 0, they intersect at 2 distinct points. All right, so that's all for today. I'll see you on the next one. All right, take care. Bye-bye.